Yo, what's up guys? Old School Dan here, and welcome back to how to build the classic physique. We are on part 5, classic shoulders. And we're going to talk about some important things like the illusion thing I talked about in a couple other videos, what exercises to do to build classic shoulders, some models to look at, and a little bit of anatomy. Cool, so let us get started. Alright, so your shoulder has 3 parts, as actual, I mean, including the traps too. So you have the medial deltoid, which is the side deltoid, the anterior, which is the front deltoid, and the posterior, which is the rear deltoid. And of course, you have the traps. And I don't want to spend too much time on anatomy because it's like I want to like give you actual information that you can use. Like who needs to really know anatomy of the shoulder? But it's like it's important to know the anatomy of the muscle so you know how to work each part out. So yeah, let us move on to the next slide. Now this is something Vince Gironda talked about a lot. He said if you want to really if you really want to achieve that classic illusion, do not get big traps. What this does is that if you get big traps, it makes your shoulders look small. And it makes them look not wide because it's like your traps are overpowering your shoulders and it's like it ruins the lines. And like look at any classic bodybuilder like Steve Reeves, guy didn't have big traps. He didn't even have a what do you call it? Big legs or anything like that. Oh, he had pretty good legs. But anyways, like look at any of the classic bodybuilders like the real ones like Don Hallworth, Frank Zane, Steve Reeves, Reg Park, like they all didn't have big traps. And that because it's like that's what builds the illusion, not having big traps. That's exactly why I don't work my traps out anymore because before I would, and then I started reading all that shit about that Vince told me about, and I was like, dude, this shit's gold, man. Like it makes so much sense. And then I applied it, and boom, dude, like my symmetry was like it got downright good. So yeah, that's a really big tip. Remember not to overwork the traps. Like you, I mean, don't. I'm not saying don't work the traps, but it's like don't get big traps because if you do, then you won't ever have good shoulders. Because once you develop powerful traps and like big traps, it's gonna be really hard to work your shoulders because your traps are gonna naturally take over the work for the shoulders. Cool. Let's see. Do I have anything else to talk about the traps? No, not really. But think about it. Like it does make sense. Like the illusion, getting big traps, making your shoulders look small, right? Cool. Now let's move on to the next slide. Let's talk about some models to look at. All right, so we have Frank Zane on the left, and we have Don Hallworth on the right. Now I want you to take a look at both of them and tell me what you see that is reminiscent. They both have wide shoulders, good symmetry. Um, what is that? Small waist. I mean, no traps. You see how they have no traps. They don't have like massive traps because I'm telling you, that is what will destroy your symmetrical, proportional, and classic illusion if you have big traps. I thank God I don't have big trap. I thank God I don't have big traps because before I wanted to because I saw that movie on what is that movie called? The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight Rises, and what's that guy's name? Not Chris Hemsworth. It's that one guy that plays Bane. Dude, that guy had master traps. I was like, damn, I want to look like that guy. And then I got over it as just a phase. But anyways, like having big traps will destroy your illusion. But take a look at these guys. Look at the shoulders. Like the shoulders are really wide. And that's another thing I want to talk about too. Now, if you look at all the bodybuilders nowadays, it's like they have really super round shoulders. Like it's like a bowling ball. And it's like I don't know. There's something about it. It doesn't look aesthetically pleasing to me. Now these guys, they have mainly wide shoulders, and excuse me, I just had a burp or something like that. Ugh. But if you look at any of the old school bodybuilders, you'll notice that they have really wide shoulders. Like take a look at any of them: Steve Reeves, Frank Zane, Don Hallworth, Arnold Schwarzenegger. You'll see that they all have really wide shoulders because they really emphasize on that part because it's. I'm telling you, that's exactly what builds the illusion, having wide shoulders. All right, so take your pick, any model. Like look at what is it? Not Frank Zane, Mike Menser. He had pretty wide shoulders. Steve Reeves, obviously, but yeah, take your pick. Look at any classic bodybuilder, like the real ones. Like they all have those really wide shoulders. Now, the next slide is going to be about what exercises to do to get those wide shoulders, to get that aesthetic look, the proportions, the symmetry, and to get that classic illusion. Cool. Let us go. Let us move on. All right. What exercises do I need to do for shoulders to get aesthetic, classic shoulders? There's only two. Number one, the lateral raise. They heavily worked the medial head of the deltoid, which is the side deltoid. And when I was before I read one of some of Vince's stuff, he said do a lot of lateral raises, like focus a lot on the width. And I was like, I don't know, I didn't really believe it. I was like, I don't know, you can't really replace the basics. But then I did it, and dude, my shoulders freaking blew up like crazy. Like I had some really nasty um side delts. Like if you take a look at any of my Instagram pictures and scroll down to when I was getting ready for my, what is it, my second competition or third competition, I had some nasty medial delts. Like they were crazy good, like crazy defined. That's because I focus a lot on the width of the deltoid, and that's what you should focus on too. Focus on getting wide deltoids, not freaking huge deltoids like cannonballs, but getting wide deltoids. But I mean, I've seen a lot of bodybuilding, like old school bodybuilding teams, like from Leroy Colbert, Frank Zane, Steve Reeves. Oh man, I can go on and on all day, but a lot of the exercises that are a lot of the exercises that are very reminiscent is the lateral raise. Like it was a basic exercise they did. Like I read an article one time. He said, do not build big shoulders, because if you do, it's gonna ruin the illusion. And he said only do rear delt flies and lateral raises. But I don't think that's practical, because you still need to keep some mass, because it's like uh the behind the neck press also works the all three parts of the shoulder, so you don't want to get rid of that. But he said, like, this was an article I read from a guy who literally outlined how to build the classic physique, and it was like an old school article. Like this is like, I'm talking about like 1960 or 19 like 50 or something like that. And I studied it, and then he talked about a lot of the exercises to do, like don't do bench press, don't do a lot of loud. What did he say? Don't overwork the traps. Don't do a lot of squats, because then you get a big ass and you get big old legs. But the exercises he said to emphasize was the rear delt fly and the lateral raise. And that makes sense, because it's like I'm picking spots where I want to put the muscle, and that's what the classic bodybuilding is really about. I know it sounds so cliche, but it's like, yeah, slap on the clay and then chisel it down. It's kind of like that. I mean, it's kind of sort of cliche, but it's like it does make sense. So, so yeah, now let's move on to the next exercise. We have the behind the neck press. Now, do not tax me for this, because I know a lot of people are gonna say, "Oh, well, that's bad for your neck," or something like that. But dude, honestly, I'm telling you, every single article, book I have ever read on old school bodybuilding has always included, always included behind the neck chins and behind the neck press. Now, I do not do the behind the neck chin, because that shit hurts my back or my neck or whatever is like that. And I don't oftenly do the behind the neck press, because that shit kind of hurts my rotator cuff sometimes. But I do a lot more overhead pressing. But I'm telling you, every article I've ever seen, like Larry Scott wrote up a routine about a 3-day split routine. He's like, oh, this is what I use for mass. He had the behind the neck press on there. And then let's see, who else did the behind the neck press? Reg Park, his program includes behind the neck press. Steve Reeves' program includes a lot of lateral raise, upright rowing. Let's see, like I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger did a lot of behind the neck chins, because it's just like that was like the shit back then. That was the exercises they did, the basics. That's what they did. Behind the neck chins and what was it? Yeah, behind the neck press. I read I saw an I saw what was it a bodybuilding exercise book by Leroy Colbert, and one of his routines he includes a lot of behind the neck press and lateral raises. So it's like, dude, it's very reminiscent. So it's like this must be the blueprint. So it's like you gotta follow it. So it's a lot of behind the neck press. If you cannot do the behind the neck press, go ahead and just do the overhead press because it's like it's just as good as working the shoulders as the behind the neck press. But the neck press is a pretty good shoulder exercise. Like it was very common back then to do that exercise along with the behind the neck chins. Cool. So do I have anything else for you? Cool. No, I don't think that. I think that's it. Honestly, like really focus on building the width of your shoulders. Like focus a lot on your rear deltoids, a lot of the. Oh, another thing. Oh, dude, yes. I'm so glad I remember this part. Do not work the front deltoid a lot. Don't ever actually work it, actually. Because the thing is, when you do any exercise you do, usually includes the front deltoid. I mean, Vince said Vince said don't even bother working the front deltoid because every exercise you do strongly includes that muscle, and you don't want to overdevelop that muscle because that muscle can be overdeveloped pretty quickly. Ah, the good thing I remember that one. Yeah, yeah. Don't I never work my front deltoid. Like it's pretty rare when I do front deltoid raises. It's like I think it's been like almost a year since I've done those, honestly. Like they really don't matter to me anymore because it's like Vince said not to work him and I'm like I'm going to follow this guy's advice. This guy trained Arnold Schwarzenegger. This guy had Larry Scott. I mean, Muhammad Maked. I mean, God, why wouldn't I take his advice, right? And he was all natural too. Vince was natural. He did not believe in steroids, but he did train guys who were on steroids. But yeah, don't. I mean, I don't usually work the front deltoid. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but it's like keep that in mind. Like think about that. Oh, does the bench press really works your front deltoid? Deltoid. Frank Zane said that. He's like, I'm not gonna do any front deltoid. Actually, I dare you look up right now. Like look up the growth program by Frank Zane. Then and now, he talks about how he's like, oh, I don't need to work out my front deltoid because I get that from the bench press anyways. And then he goes on and talks about, oh yeah, I'm gonna do some exercises for the width of my shoulder and the rear deltoid. So he goes on and does some cable lateral raises and some rear delt flies or something like that. But yeah, that's a good one. Don't overwork the traps. Don't overwork the front deltoid. That will ruin the symmetry of your physique. Cool. All right, now to wrap it up. Now we talked about the three parts of the shoulder. You have the medial deltoid, the anterior, and the posterior. The posterior is the rear, and the anterior is the front, and the medial is the side. And we talked about some models to look at. Like some really good models is Don Hollowworth. He's an amazing model. That guy had the best shoulders, the best shoulders. And if you also think about this too, his physique was the only physique I've ever seen that is close to Steve Reeves' physique. Like there's a picture that I might post up a little later on. It's gonna be so cool because it's gonna be kind of controversial and kind of like, oh no, I don't think he was close to Steve Reeves, but he had the closest physique to Steve Reeves. So we talked about some good models like Frank Zane, wide shoulders, like focus on the width of your shoulders. Yeah, we talked about don't overwork the traps because that will ruin the symmetry, the proportions, and the illusion of your physique. And we talked about what exercises to do for shoulders. There's only two: lateral raise and behind the neck press. If you cannot do the behind the neck press, please do the overhead press. And we talked about how you really want to emphasize the rear deltoid work and the lateral the width of your shoulders with using the lateral raise. And I get a lot of questions like, how do you build your shoulders like that? And then it's like, dude, honestly, all I did for like a year, I don't know, a year straight, but for a couple months straight, was I worked my rear deltoids and my lateral head. I just did pure rear delt flies and lateral raises. That's it. That's it. And some upright rowing. That's it. That's all I did for shoulders. That is how I got my big shoulders. But earlier in my bodybuilding career, when I was younger, I did a lot of behind the neck presses and a lot of rear delt flies and lateral raises. So it's like those are the basics that I focus on. Those are the basics you should focus on. So yeah, I think that's all I have for you. Next video is gonna be probably Gotta catch my breath. Next week's video is probably gonna be about. Let's see. Let me think. Probably back. Yeah, we're gonna get into that. It's gonna be a really good one. Ah, this is a good one, man. A lot of people ask me about how I build my back. Dude, it's so simple, man. It's very simple to build a classic back, but there's two types of backs. Like you have the you know what, we'll get into that later on, but if you like this video, if you guys like this video, please like and subscribe. Share this video with someone who needs to see it, who wants to build a classic physique. Share it with them so they can end their struggles with like paying a freaking coach that will charge you 2,500 for 2 sessions or something, whatever. Or like it's like shit like this, dude. Like, dude, I read this shit out of a book. Like, why not share the knowledge? You know what I mean? Like, fuck, why do you have to be so selfish and shit? Like, just give us the secret, man. Just give us the sauce. All right, but yeah. But if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for watching. This is Old School Dan checking out. Peace.